What is up, everyone? Jim Barnish here. Welcome back to The Dirt, where we discuss strategies to grow your business and maximize enterprise value. Well, today's episode is all about pricing and packaging because I see so many growth stage companies get pricing wrong. So many companies, packaging, pricing, and I am so sick of companies leaving money on the table. Sick of it. So hopefully this episode helps to cure the sickness. If not, give me a ring and I'll help you through it. Ultimately, you need to stop pricing your product against your solution. Plain and simple. This is where you start by estimating the cost of building your solution, and then you slap a reasonable margin on top to determine the price of your product. And it's cost-based pricing, and it usually leads to suboptimal pricing almost every time, leaving money, again, on the table. It's also a backwards way of setting pricing. Plain and simple. Here's why. Number one, your customers don't care about your cost structure or your margins. Number two, your customers do care about achieving their desired outcomes or value at a fair price. Number three, your customers do determine the fair price by comparing you to existing alternatives. All right, so that's pretty simple, right? Or at least it sounds that way. So then what does optimal price mean? Optimal price sits somewhere between two anchors. The first anchor comes from the monetary value that your customers place on your unique value proposition. A customer will only use your product if they stand to realize more value for themselves than they pay you. This anchor typically sets the ceiling for your pricing. All right, and then the second anchor comes from the cost of all the existing alternatives. In other words, how much time, money, and effort are prospective customers currently spending on getting the job done? If your unique value proposition or UVP is indeed better, you can charge a premium, but be wary that customers will always compare your product against alternatives. This anchor typically sets the floor of your pricing. All right, so between the ceiling and the floor, that is where the optimal price sits, somewhere between the cost of existing alternatives and the monetary value customers place on your UVP. Okay, so now you have a general framework around setting pricing, but that's a very general answer since it's general framework. So to elaborate fuller on all of this, I'm going to walk you through three key themes on how companies get pricing and packaging wrong, so that way you can get it right. There are three major areas where companies get pricing and packaging wrong. Number one, wrong pricing structure. Number two, packaging problems. And number three, understanding competitors' pricing and place in the market, your place in the market. All right, so let's start with number one, wrong pricing structure. Many companies have a pricing structure that makes sense on the surface, like user-based, but could be better if it's more aligned to the value the customer receives. So a good example here is when Netflix first launched in 1997, it employed a traditional pay-per-rental model similar to Blockbuster. Customers would rent DVDs for a set price and return them when finished. However, this model was not sustainable, obviously, due to high operational costs and limited customer retention. So a couple years later, Netflix pivoted to a subscription model, today, allowing customers to rent as many DVDs as they wanted for a flat monthly fee. This new pricing model was way more appealing to customers and led to increased customer loyalty and retention. It was a significant part of Netflix's early success and helped it to outcompete traditional brick and mortar rental stores like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video. Another good example are the traditional consulting firms that I was a part of, doing things like time and materials versus being a partner in the business and aligning fees to direct business outcomes. Value, duh, right? Well, now at Orchid Black, we tie every one of our engagements to business outcomes around major growth and liquidity events. So you see what I mean? Like you can really, really dial into the pricing problems and really understand how to shift that for your customer. Okay, next, number two, packaging problems. So many pricing and packaging structures look like the house was built from additions, For example, it functions, but it was jumbled together and would make a lot more sense if it was more well planned from the start. Additionally, a lot of growth stage businesses, including many of our clients at Orchid Black, intermix a product or SaaS solution with expert services tied to it. Delineating the value and understanding where the most value is for your customers is absolutely imperative. In fact, and a good example here is HubSpot, a leading customer relationship management or CRM platform, originally offered 3 separate products: Marketing Hub, Sales Hub, and Service Hub. Each product had its own pricing and features and blah, 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 making it super difficult for customers to understand which product or package to choose. Recognizing that issue, HubSpot made a huge change in its pricing and packaging strategy. In 2020, they actually introduced a HubSpot CRM suite, a package that combined all 3 products into one unified solution, which simplified the offering and made it easier for customers to understand. Now, they still have modules and things like that make it easy for different customers to buy. But the way that they did that is they also introduced tiered pricing for the CRM suite. So they have starter and professional and enterprise in order to cater to businesses of different sizes and needs, and the modules connected. And this allowed small businesses to start with the basic features and upgrade as they grew, while larger businesses could benefit from the full range of advanced features in the enterprise tier and all the modules. This strategy allowed HubSpot to streamline their product offering, simplifying the buying process for customers, and position themselves as a super comprehensive solution for businesses at all stages of growth. The change has been extremely well received, contributing to HubSpot's continued growth and success in a super competitive CRM market. And that's just awesome, right? All right, so the third one is understanding competitors' pricing and your place in the market. Well, many companies will determine their pricing based on competitive analysis. And it's easy to understand why that's the case, but should it be that way? Are you really trying to duplicate your competitor's company? Does your brand value align to their brand value? You really have an incomplete picture of why competitors price the way that they did. While this can and should be a factor in pricing, as mentioned before in our anchoring around pricing, around value-based pricing, this should not be the be-all, end-all. Think back to earlier in the podcast as we talked about those 2 anchors, right? So that's kind of one of them, is what are competitors doing? Boom. Well, one good example here is when the Wall Street Journal, owned by Dow Jones, first launched its online edition in the mid-90s. It was one of the few newspapers that charged for online content. What the hell? Why would we do that? Well, at that time, most newspapers offered their online content for free, funded by advertising revenue. However, the Journal recognized the value of its content and the audience it attracted, and so its pricing strategy was based on its understanding of its unique place in the market for them and not just what its competitors were doing. It understood its premium. While initially this was a super controversial move, it turned out to be a pretty successful strategy, and as the market evolved and more newspapers started to put up paywalls for their online content, the Journal was ahead of the curve and already had an established online subscriber base. Okay, so concluding this, right? Be sure to remember the 3 biggest pitfalls on packaging and pricing. Number 1, wrong pricing structure. Number 2, packaging problems. Number 3, understanding competitor pricing and your place in the market. And then tie these concepts that you've learned all this information from back to your own value-based pricing rather than doing stupid cost-based pricing. Remember the 2 anchors we discussed around this. Number 1, the monetary value your customers place on your offering, value. And number 2, the cost of existing alternatives, right? Ceiling and floor. Okay, done. If you focus on value-based pricing and you avoid these 3 pitfalls well, you will ensure that you do not leave money on the table and have a successful pricing and packaging strategy. And that wraps up today's episode. So remember, pricing and packaging doesn't need to be hard, but it does need to be strategic and it does need to be executed on well. If you can implement it on your own, go get them, champ. Hopefully this helps and you can use this and listen to it again and again if needed. But if you're having a hard time executing, feel free to reach out. Perhaps I can offer some further support to you. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with other business owners and business leaders that might find it helpful. We're really looking to blow this podcast up, so any help you can offer there would be super helpful. And don't forget to subscribe to The Dirt on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for more growth insights and knowledge. Till next time, thank you so much for listening in on The Dirt. Let's grow smart and let's grow fast together. Thank you.